Life is one big seminar, and I'm going to either go to it or teach it.
He started out as a broadcaster in Wisconsin, but his claim to fame is the best sales trainer in the business, and that was 30 plus years ago.
Chris is known for developing professional salespeople.
He's the real deal, and he trained to be a professional trainer.
A training session that doesn't change your behavior in some small way is as useless as a parachute that opens on the first bounce.
He's genuine, he's smart, he's creative.
Chris Lytle is vision.
With Chris Lytle, I just think you get the whole shebang.
The way Chris got hired here, we had put out a posting for radio salespeople.
I sent a resume and a reel-to-reel tape.
Any resumes that came in, any letters that came in with tape, all went to the program director, Bill Vansel.
Happened to be the basketball coach of the Wisdom Wizards, and he saw that I was 6'3", that I had high jumped 6 feet 8.
His conclusion was that if somebody had won a state high jump championship in high school, he was probably tall enough to be a center.
And he takes the packet back down to Phil Fisher and says, you might want to look at this guy pretty closely.
Looks like a great hire, you ought to talk to him. So Phil talked to him.
It wasn't much of an interview, they just told me how great Wisdom was and how I'd like it in Madison.
Phil hired him, and Chris played center on the Wisdom Wizards.
It's a perfect time to be in that business.
Chris started on the sales staff and worked his way up and got promoted to sales manager here and still handled American TV as one of his big accounts.
Chris Lytle, his demeanor is like if you were casting a movie in Hollywood, he'd be the ultimate professional executive. Chris Lytle. Hello. I hope we can do a lot of business together.
I was really into that, being his rep when I was at Wisdom. And I was really into the job of really getting these promotions going.
I mean, he was like acting as an advertising manager, a media buyer, a copywriter.
Lenny used to say there's a combination of words that we can come up with that can get anybody to swim across Lake Mendota to come to our store. And we're always looking for that combination of words.
Chris left us and went over and worked full-time with Lenny.
Those are fun promotions and fun times. We tried to do crazy things. And he was, he was never afraid to try something that was different.
Chris taught me everything I know about radio.
I think the biggest thing that happened to me was that we had the American TV ice storm sale one day.
I think it was 1975 or 6. There was a very serious ice storm in Madison.
And it rained and froze for 3 days.
There wasn't power in huge areas of Madison.
George Rule called me in and said, we're in retail, we're not going to close the store. So I wrote this ice storm sale commercial.
Chris wrote a script and get to the store that you should come.
Now listen up. American TV is open, but there are no lights, no heat, no power.
What a dumb commercial. We were supposedly selling televisions and stereo equipment and refrigerators, everything that you have to plug in, and there's no electricity.
If you're willing to buy a TV you can't watch, a stereo you can't listen to, a washer and dryer you can't even see, Americans willing to deal.
What you do is bring a flashlight, bring a candle, dress warmly, but shop now.
It was more hysterical to see, now which speaker am I going to buy? Just hold the flashlight up.
This special pricing ends soon. It ends as soon as the lights, power, and heat go back on, so take advantage of it.
American's Ice Storm Sale, the sale that not even crazy TV Lenny planned.
And to that date, it was the biggest day in the history of American TV. And I was in Tokyo, in Japan. He did the whole thing.
Well, I've told that story all over the world, and people love it. They clap for it. It's so fun to play in a seminar because it shows the power of broadcast, and that's where I really became a believer.
Chris and I formed the business in 1984.
The timing was right because I knew radio needed sales training.
At one point, he was the advertising director at American TV, and he had 167 different salespeople calling on him. So he was able to see just exactly how good or how poorly they did.
And that's what I started thinking about, is how can I look at the different kinds of relationships, the different kinds of approaches, the different kinds of things people do in a sales call.
In those days, most of the sales consultants would gather the salespeople around a conference table and just lecture. They'd get out a flip chart and a stick and bang it on the flip chart and tell them how to do it.
That's where Chris was a visionary, is that he got down to the individual and said, you can learn all these skills and you can have all these tools and all this stuff in your briefcase, but if you don't have it in your heart, it's not worth getting out of bed every day.
He's focused on that salesperson and individually helping those people get better.
You try to help people realize that they're already competent and good, and they just can make refinements and get a little bit better. And you get a little bit better every day. You're pretty good.
I think we all have confidence that when Chris is out in front speaking to a group of people, that they'll walk away with not only good information, but a good feeling.
You know, when they're looking at me, when they're nodding their heads, when they're smiling, they're taking notes, and you see the lights come on.
They'll jump up in the middle of the room, they'll raise their hand, they'll say, I finally get this business, I finally understand what I'm supposed to be doing.
When people come out of the meeting, they're more directed and more enthusiastic, and they feel like they know what to do.
Broadcast sales teams who are trained by Chris are identifiable in the marketplace because they sell against their competition like no other.
People who came and we turned on the lights and we gave them a track to run on and a sales process to go through, really did well. And they brought good people in and trained them, and they really did well. That's really all I can do.
Chris's first book that was published by a major publishing house is called The Accidental Salesperson. It was a business bestseller right out of the chute, and that's the book that ended up being translated into 8 languages. His distribution of his training materials is in 39 countries. He has done seminars in every single state in the country, every province in Canada except maybe Yukon, I think.
When somebody who has the gravitas that Chris does as a sales trainer coming out of Wisconsin, that does a lot to elevate the opinion of what Wisconsin broadcasters bring to the mix. I think that's a huge value for the state.
So if you can think about the fact that Chris has trained over 250,000 people, both salespeople, their managers, their clients, all of those people have gained more success in their own businesses and done their jobs better as a result of him doing a great job.
That's what I'm proud of, is people that I've helped stay in the business, succeed in the business, and then bring other people into the business and help them.
Chris Lytle means to the industry what a fellow like Joe DiMaggio means to baseball. You play every day. You play as hard as you can. You set an example. You're not the important player. The team is what's important. And you only gain recognition by adding to the team. I wish he was interested in working in the e-bike industry.